Oh, this is, by the way, this is Candace on Cardi, and that's Eliza.
So that sign sheet we're passing around, that's for you guys to put your name and email on it, because we'll send you an email in about 2 months to survey the presentation that we're giving you today. Basically asking, was this useful for you? Did you learn something new, or did it help you like gain the confidence to try something that maybe you already had that information but weren't sure what to do with it? So please, it's important for us to have that feedback, because we're the first cohort in the Imperial Valley. So if you wanted to join our group, you could totally do that. We have sign-ins kind of starting next year, in January. But we want to make the program as accessible and as awesome as we can for everybody. So if you guys already are familiar with what we come up with, you already have something to say, that would be like such an awesome and valuable insight for you as a volunteer to have if you wanted to go on that program.
And just a note, you don't have to actually have gardening experience to become a master gardener. You learn, we teach you.
Yeah.
Or they teach you. I should say the program teaches you.
Yes. All right. So did everybody get a handout? Oh yes. So here, let me pass those around.
Oh, here, I'll do that.
Yeah.
You guys want to speak?
That's okay.
You want those handouts?
Yeah, so these handouts are just
Yeah,
for the activity we're going to do, but I just want to make sure everybody.
okay, are we gonna, we need the release too, right?
Yes, so the consent form is also coming around because there is video that is being recorded at the moment and will be shared with the UC Master Gardener program. So if we were to release that, we want to make sure that you are consenting to your face and your name being put out there in conjunction with the program.
Okay, so the Master Gardener program, it works under the umbrella of the UCCE and the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Center, which is a lot to remember and say. So there's all these different entities from the University of California, like 4-H, CalFresh, and the Master Gardener program. So that's where we're from.
And so at the end of the day, the mission statement of the UC Master Gardener program is to extend research-based knowledge and information on home horticultural pest management and sustainable land practices. So I will tell you, in that class, we went over those 3 principles over and over and over again, because those things look really different depending on the context in which you are gardening. So that was something I really enjoyed about having that research-based knowledge available to us. And we get a lot of cool professors come through and tell us like what they know. So it was like taking a hardcore class for a minute, but we got so much information out of these really experienced individuals who had nothing but like enthusiasm to share with you what they know. Right?
All right, so the life cycle of a master gardener. So before we even joined the program, we had to go through a pretty rigorous interview and application process that included background check.
Yeah, I did have to do that.
Among a few other things. And then every Saturday for 15 weeks, we had training. So from the beginning of January to May.
Till May, yeah.
May, we had training where we learned everything from soil, how, you know, the soil triangle and what makes up the soil and how to improve your soil, all the way to pest management and how to accurately monitor and implement those things in order to take care of pest problem in your garden. So this is our first year as the Master Gardener program.
Got some late joiners? Okay.
Welcome. Yeah, so we're, like I said earlier, we're the
How
first
many cute
cohort,
ones?
so, this is pretty new here
Huh?
in the valley, but it's not a brand new program to the University of California. We're just really excited to share this program with you guys and hope to hook you in so that we get some new cohorts as we go along. So in our first year, as Candace will tell you, we have 50 hours to fulfill.
Yes, so 50 hours of volunteer time for the first year. That's what we aim for. So getting out there and having classes just like this, you know, setting up other school gardens and things like that. That's what we're aiming for this year. So a couple of the projects that we've already been working on, there's a library garden happening in Imperial and the Farm Smart Garden at the Extension Center in Hopeville. And a couple others, and we're just hoping to add so many more.
Yeah, I was actually just out at a kind of a daycare kind of thing yesterday myself, working, introducing kids to things.
Yeah.
So.
So that's another thing, I like, I'm not like a huge gardener before this program. I like really focus on child development, so you get a chance to work with people of all ages. I know child development is a pretty big thing here in the valley and here in this campus, so think about also expanding your experience in pretty unconventional ways that gets you outside, gets you moving.
Yeah,
And you're boosting every part of you when you garden.
gardening goes well with schools and childcare and stuff like that, because not only is it hands-on, it's also science. You know, and it's just, and kids, they love doing stuff like that because they learn stuff, they can go home and they say, look what I did,
Yeah.
look what I grew.
And stuff.
So during this presentation, we're hoping to familiarize you with the basics of gardening. These are actually a few photos from my garden, my backyard garden. I really love gardening. It helps me in so many ways. I'm a mother of 4. I love to teach my children about planting and growing and harvesting. Actually, all these items here on the table came from my backyard. So we have lemon basil, eggplants, and eggs from our chickens. So you really don't need a huge amount of space to garden. You know, you can work with what you have, you know, even if it's a few buckets, a few small pots, start there. You know, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars in order to have this Instagram style garden, you know?
And yeah, also no dwelling is off limits either. Yeah, there are around the country, around the world, you'll find I garden on a hillside. Somebody in our neighborhood near us that gardens on a balcony. And you look at that, and other places people garden on rooftops. So nothing's off limits.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
if you don't have the space in soil, you can do things like small hydroponic systems as well that
Oh, indoor.
that really, I mean, there's so many different ways to garden. So we're really hoping to familiarize you. And specifically in this presentation, we're gonna focus on herb gardening and cool winter vegetable crops.
I forgot
I
about
wanted to
indoor.
stop there and check in with you guys because, as I said, I wasn't much of a gardener before this program. What does cool winter vegetable crop mean to you? Would anybody be brave enough to tell me what that sounds like, or if you know what it means? Yeah, go ahead.
Vegetables that only grow in the winter?
I was intimidated by the way that was termed, but exactly, so we are going to look at, they're always going to pay attention to the context in which you're planting, which is very specific. Sometimes you're going to have to look at what's gonna live here versus what survives in San Diego. It's a very different look.
Right,
So-
and yeah. On that note, I'm gonna kind of, when you hear, we have what we call zones, and you've probably seen seed packets. I don't know if these no, these don't have a standard seed packet. Do we have any seed packets?
it'll come.
Okay, all right. Oh, okay. Do you want me to just explain that then? Okay. Zones which you'll see in the back of it, you'll see a picture of the United States and there'll be multicolored and stuff like that.
There you go, thank you.
Oh, you gotta pick,
So take a look at the
yeah,
different shadings, you should all have this in your pack. So at the back, the map will show you a gradient of green, it looks like.
right,
and
yeah,
Cardi
we
was-
have different zones and then next to it is usually a table that correlates with it and tells you. This plants with the, plant this at this time of year. And but in your packet, you will have. Something from the UC, which is actually the scientifically studied one just for this valley. Because even though we are more or less the same zone as northern, all the way from north, all the way around the coast of the United States. We are halfway around the coast of the United States. Vary a little bit, because and sometimes that affects growing because humidity and other time factors play into what actually will grow. You know, elevation, humidity, and all this other little factors, and so that little cheat sheet, the planning guide, they're kind of like cheat sheets because you just look at them and they tell you, oh yeah, grow this during this month. You have one for flowers and one for vegetables on that, in that packet.
Thank you, Cardi, that's right, so again, like, we're here to kind of help you overcome any intimidation you might feel, because I've seen those maps a million times and I was always like. "Oh, don't know what that means,
Just
Can't do
note,
it.
just a note, Raleigh through El Centro and Clarksville, the greater, you know, all these communities are kind of grouped here together, are populated areas are generally 9B to 10A, right? Or is there any 10Bs out here?
No.
No, okay, because I know that we actually do that, but it's not, I think it's way out there in the desert.
Yeah.
And there's actually a 9A actually, I think it's more up closer to the north, but not out here in the greater Imperial Valley.
You wanna do this part or you want that? All right, so we have a few tips for you. We have the outline of the presentation. What we're gonna be talking about is like the top tips of a successful herb garden and what an annual versus a perennial herb means. Again, these are just terms. We'll go over with you what they mean a bit. And then we're gonna walk through what it looks like when you're planning a vegetable garden, which, you know, before I took this class, I thought, oh, well, you know, you just, you know, decide, oh, what's gonna look cute together, tomatoes and chiles. But there's actually really helpful tips that we're gonna offer you to make your garden really efficient and flourish to the best of its capacity.
Yeah,
So we consider things like location. How much do you want to plant and what do you want to plant? How are we going to use the space? Are we going to do hydroponics? Are we going to use vertical space or purely horizontal? And then how to prepare the garden plant. And lastly, we're going to go over what it looks like when you're preparing to plant. What kind of things do you need, including tools, seeds versus transplants, and an early start on growing vegetables, which is like, what would you say that?
Like starting seeds.
Yeah.
prior to
Yeah.
planting them.
right, yeah, because sometimes, you know, like out here, they generally don't recommend starting celery by seed. Because, why? Because the time it takes for that seed to grow, and by the time the heat kicks back in, it's a little late. But so they actually want transplants, which grow inside greenhouses.
Right, so that's a really good example of what we'll dive a little bit deeper into. And then a couple more things is just talking about soil improvements and preparation and time of planting, which she just kind of talked about, right?
But yeah, because you want to be able to grow it from either seed to harvest before the hot heat kicks in, or the heat or the cool kicks in, whichever one it doesn't like. Or so if it can't go from seed to harvest that time, transplants might be better. Right?
Right. Do you want to go over this slide with them?
Oh, here's, huh? Okay, let me just.
These are all, again, photos from my garden. So the
Okay,
top
so
left
we're
is
covered.
mint, and we
Okay,
had lemon
yeah.
bee balm, basil, and then in the bowl is some cinnamon basil that I harvested. So it's just really fun to grow different herbs. I enjoy growing both medicinal and culinary herbs. For instance, this lemon bee balm here, one
Is that up here
recently
too?
I had a cold. So I used the plant, I steamed it, and I was able to like breathe in the steam, and it helps to help me with the to decongest myself. And it was really great because it's like
Oh,
such a
okay.
good experience getting to grow something that you can use to help you feel better, you know? So that's one of the things I love to grow herbs for. There's some herbs that do better in the summer, whereas others do better in the cool weather, like cilantro. If you try to grow it in the summer, it'll just go to seed. But on the plus side, you'll end up with coriander. So the seeds from the cilantro are also called coriander. So that's used a lot in Indian cooking.
Well, it's used in a lot of cooking, actually.
Yeah, but I would say the majority of the times that I personally heard of it in recipes has been, you know, in Indian dishes, they use it a lot to grind it up with like mustard seed and things, and they'll fry it before they.
Right,
Kind
it
of
also, it also goes in,
aromatic
if you're,
vegetables.
you'll find, if you're doing any kind of home canning, it's in a pipping spice
Oh, that's
package,
true.
you know, it's a, so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, alright, go for the.
So, yeah, it's saying, so choose a sunny location for well-drained soil, like, rosemary, they like the, rosemary is a herb that it grows well in the summer, likes a well-drained soil. And, you know, and don't want it, but you can also, so, roots hort, so, and she mentioned that parsley is kind of like shaded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parsley growing now.
Yeah, I have parsley growing, it's doing better now that it's cooling down. Grow herbs according to similar water needs, so yeah, you don't put something that needs the well-drained soil with something that needs a lot of water, you know? So, and you know, perennial herbs generally require no fertilization, on top that talk.
Yeah, with so there are annual and perennial herbs. Annual means that it's done in one season, right? Whereas perennial, they can continue living on. Annual typically has more fragile root systems, whereas a perennial has deeper root system where it could grow deeper in the soil so that it can get more water even in the drier times, right? So knowing where and how to plant your herbs really matters. You don't really want to have a big giant rosemary bush in with your cilantro and things like that, especially because the way that the plant is, like for instance, here I have some lemon basil from my garden, and this is about a 2-year-old plant. So you can see that the newer growth has the green stems and the older growth has the more woody stems. And based on that, you'll know like cilantro, when you have cilantro from the grocery store, you could see that the stems are all just
Right.
green and not woody.
Yeah, just to know about this, she was letting this go to seed. If you want the best basil, you wanna keep cutting these flowers off so that it doesn't go to, don't.
Personally,
You like it like that?
I prefer to keep the flowers because after a certain point,
It regenerates.
I personally like to keep for the pollinators. The reason that I grow a lot of herbs, not only for my cooking, is because in my garden itself, to get more production, I like to have plants that the pollinators can visit in order to get my plants
Right,
for
yeah,
sure
that would have been
pollinated.
my
Like,
next point, is
Yeah.
just if you want it, cause I have Thai basil that's growing like this, and also have Thai basil that's not. But the Thai basil that's growing like this, they brought in tons of beautiful bees that helped with my garden last year. And so they smell good too, kind of. So yeah, but so seed, when it's going to seed, it doesn't usually produce the best leaf. But when if you're so leaf or seed, you gotta choose. What was I gonna say?
okay, so
Oh, yeah, basil too, they get big, so
and
probably not a small pot.
and herbs, especially like basil, can be dehydrated and saved for later. You know, you can even make things like pesto sauce or chimichurri out of basil. I don't know if you've heard of either, but like for instance, this is lemon basil, and afterwards you guys are welcome to come and smell it. To me, honestly, I think this smells like Fruit Loops. It's one of my, yeah, you can come up and smell it if you'd like, it's amazing.
It does smell like food.
Yeah, it does, right?
Not the marshmallow version of.
Yeah, I have two different types of basil. There's kind of funny because basil looks different.
Yeah.
That one's probably looks closer to the Thai basil, but Genevieve basil has giant leaves and it's a sweet basil.
And there's even a really interesting variety called lettuce leaf basil where the leaves are huge, like almost like one of those small heads of lettuce. So it'd be perfect for like a spring roll, you know, you just put it in there with all the other fillings.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we're going to your house after.
Yeah, so and then a few of these pictures up here are actually a few different types of basil, like this one up here is some cinnamon basil. And this one is it's a purple type of basil, it had more of like a licorice sort of scent to it. And this right here, this hairy little plant is clary sage. Clary sage is an herb that's typically used for menstrual cramps and headaches. Originally I had gotten into growing herbs because I was very interested in aromatherapy. And I thought it would be really cool to grow these things to make different type of salves for healing skin issues. And I was also making homemade soap at the time. So growing a lot of these herbs helped me to have fun and play around with it and learn something new. A couple herbs I grew in particular
Oh,
were.
he has a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I've heard people talking to plants and does it really help them grow? Do you talk to your plants?
I think people do that and there's no scientific proof, but we still do it.
Yeah.
Actually, I do think there are a few studies about playing classical music to plants to get them to grow. So I mean, you can definitely check out like Google Scholar. I always like to look up stuff on Google Scholar. And they can take you to some pretty cool, interesting information about all of
But yeah, but you will find yourself talking to your plants.
Yeah, like
Even
why
if-
aren't you growing?
That's just like. You never realize you're gonna do this, but you're gonna find out you're gonna do that. It's just like, it's true. You know, it's just like, I would have never thought I'd be talking to a plant. But I have talked to my plants.
Look at us. Here we are growing together.
Yeah.
So, but I honestly don't know if there's any scientific proof of that, but it
I
is.
think that we exhale a little bit of oxygen, so it like picks that up, so that there's probably some molecular stuff going on there.
Well, I think, I don't know.
The good vibration.
Yeah, exactly. So now back to the slide a little bit,
I
back
wanted
to
to,
these
I did,
terms.
before you start, I did want to mention one other thing. Herbs are also really good for interplanting, companion planting with other vegetables like tomatoes and carrots and lettuce and stuff like that. Sometimes they help because they have a lot of scent and stuff and they bring in pollinators. They help make it less likely to have bugs to attack it because those bugs don't like to be around it, you know? So they kind of discourage them.
Yeah, like a good example of what Cardi's talking about is some gardeners really love to plant marigolds around their tomatoes and the scent of the marigolds. I don't know if you've ever smelled marigolds, but it's a pretty strong scent. It keeps a lot of critters away that wouldn't harm plants.
Yeah, so herbs and flowers, there's a lot of them that you might consider planting just because they help with your vegetables.
Yeah, and we talk a good game on growing things where they belong, but I'm really not that great at it. So in my garden in particular, I like to just sprinkle a little here sometimes, but I'm trying to get a little better at that. So in my garden, you'll see a lot of things mixed together. So, so basically we have annual, biennial, and perennial plants, right? So annual finishes in one season. Where let's see, some examples of that would be
What's that?
annual plants.
Annual plant. That's
You know,
one.
like tomatoes.
Right, yeah. Yes, I like I'm drawing blank, so.
I know, me too.
Specifically in terms of fall
Okay.
plants, you know, anything like a beet, a
Okay,
radish, a
plant-
potato.
So annual, okay, actually, so out here, a tomato plant is in some areas, tomato plants are annual, some are perennial. Because out here, we can actually have a tomato plant grow year round if you're careful enough to cultivate it just right. But a lot of people only plant them seasonally. Broccoli is would be, that's only like, it completes a cycle in a single season. You plant it about this time of year, and by winter time, you're pulling that out. You know, and you're getting it ready for your spring garden for things like your tomatoes and stuff like that. And your peppers and things.
I have a question.
So, yes. Oh,
Would the broccoli from your backyard be considered organic?
Depends on how
Yeah.
you grow it and like the inputs that you use, so I mean. It really depends, like if you use organic soil, and organic is really more of a
technical term, actually.
technical term, yeah, where farmers pay certain fees
And
in order to get.
And it also
certified
depends on the
organic.
states. Each state has their own way of rating, determining what is organic. California is pretty strict. So just because you didn't put any pesticides on it, just because you grew it from an organic seed, doesn't guarantee that California will recognize it as an organic thing, but you yourself know it is.
Yeah.
But
It all depends on your
because
inputs.
farmer X next door could be spraying pesticides and it could be drifting on it, so that's one of the reasons why they're strict about it. Yeah.
But there are so many ways that you can grow organically, you know, whether it be just, one of the big things that we learned about was, integrated pest management. So just really watching, making sure that the pests are at a certain, level. If they go above that level, that's when you wanna act. But there are plenty of organic, pest control methods, you know, whether it be using something natural like a product called diatomaceous earth, which
Right.
is basically crushed seashells.
Right, and
you-
some people call it DE for abbreviation.
Yeah, so basically you put it on your plants and it goes into the bug's exoskeleton and dries them out and kills them. You know, versus spraying your plants with
With
pesticides.
harsh chemicals. Right.
Alright, so sun exposure is something that you'll really wanna take into consideration, you know, if it's too shady of a spot, your plants might not grow, too much sun, and they might get sunburned. I brought actually some of these eggplants to show you an example of sunburn on my eggplants, right, so
You have a couple of them, I can walk around.
these two have some sunburn here.
Okay, I'll walk one around.
Yeah, see, so these are eggplants and you can see how they look like this. They are brown and cracked open in certain spots. And that's sunburn.
You've probably seen product like this at the store.
Yeah, and so that's just something that I could probably help the plants out by adding a little bit of shade, you know, an umbrella, or whether it be, you know, planting things closer to a shady area. Eggplant typically love the summer, so that's not something you would grow in the fall and winter, but I still have it producing. And I mean, it's a giver. I have 3 plants and this is just this week's harvest, so I definitely recommend growing eggplant. It's a keeper.
Yes. Whoever,
Yeah, sure.
okay. So the soil is one of the main places where the plant will get its nutrients, so you wanna make sure that the soil has a good balance. And we took a whole class on like pH levels and like what's in the soil, how much sand, how much rock, how much worms live in your, there aren't a lot here, okay? You have to buy them. So, all of that contributes to the health of your plant. So for example, we talked earlier about drainage and how you want that, because the plants need to breathe. So in essence, when there's too much water and it can't go anywhere, you're drowning your plant. You don't really think about a plant
Yeah,
breathing,
your soil type.
but yes, yeah.
Yeah,
it all
because we have
affects.
various soil types out here. Some people are fortunate to have the sandy loam, which is the preferred. But then there's some people that have the clay, but there are benefits to both. The sandy loam has good drainage, but it may not be as, have as many nutrients, so you may want to supplement that. But the clay, although it doesn't have good drainage, has plenty of nutrients.
So that's why we also recommend amending your soil, so not just getting it from one place and then just deciding like, yeah, that'll do. There are many different sources of nutrients you can get. They mentioned something called diatomaceous earth. Talked about worms, we can talk about composting, those kind of things as well. And on the slide here suggests like using raised beds as well. So if your soil doesn't have too much area or like the water just doesn't go anywhere once it drains, then a raised bed would really help with
Right,
that.
raised beds are a very popular thing right now, a lot of people are doing them, you know, so.
Yeah.
You know, so they're, on a raised bed, just to explain, there are different types, some are just a wood frame. That's on the ground, or brick frame, or whatever, they're just sitting directly on the ground with maybe some cardboard or something underneath that keep the weeds down, or what do you call that stuff, the fabric, the
Landscaping fabric.
landscaping fabric, some people use that, some people use cardboard. And if you have gophers and stuff, you might wanna put some fencing down underneath all that. But some raised beds are actually literally raised, they are above the ground. And so there's different kinds, and some have bottoms, some don't. So it just depends on what you wanna go with, and, but also another thing to consider is, often the ones that are raised up off the ground are shallow. So if you're trying to grow something with a deep root, that may not be the best bet. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why the location is important when choosing your garden.
And then we look at how different herbs and all plants have different requirements for water and nutrients as well. So we couldn't tell you exactly like, oh, just because it's an herb and it's a perennial, you're gonna have to give it this much water. It's very specific to the species that you have.
Oh, can I go back to raised beds, one more thing?
Yeah.
Raised beds are also you'd be very creative with the raised beds. We can build raised beds out of just about everything. I just started I'm actually just got it ready. It hasn't got anything in it, but I used a barbecue fire pit that got a hole in it, and I just kind of fixed the hole. But then I said, you know what, it's not good for fires anymore because it's got that hole in the bottom that had been patched. But it's great, it'll be great for my strawberries, especially when I have a lid for it.
Nice.
You know, so I'm moving my strawberries over there next month.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to point out. I actually have a few things in my backyard that I've reused from the house that I thought, why throw this away? Like I had a old bookshelf that one of the shelves broke. So I just decided to take it outside, take off the cheap backing of it and make it a garden bed. I also have a old bed frame, the metal ones with the wheels that you injure yourself on. So I was like, I don't want to just throw it away. So I threw some chicken wire on it and now I have it as a trellis. So, you really, you can do so much.
Very creative. Yeah, a lot of gardeners are very creative like that.
Yeah, or 5-gallon buckets from Home Depot. They're maybe $3 or $4 a bucket. You just get that, drill some holes in it, put some soil, and you can start gardening like that.
And I have a couple of old barbecue bottoms for a couple that are hooked onto what do you call it, what do you call those? Sawhorses. They're mounted on sawhorses. So activity, you mean?
All right, so before we keep going here, we'll take a little pause if anybody wants to eat or partly like grab a snack. But also we'll get
There's a
into
planning activity.
the potty.
Okay, yeah,
Eat and then we'll pot.
yeah, on your table you find some seeds and stuff. And
So we'll need to use the hot water in order to expand the pea pots.
oh yeah,
So let me explain what what we're gonna be doing with this planting activity. So right here we have these peat pellets, and peat is basically old trees that have been compressed down into these fancy little bricks. And so when you add hot water, it'll expand and it'll be able to fill up this cup right here. And so it's a soilless medium, so it has no dirt, no fertilizer or anything like that. It helps for your plant to grow uninhibited by like sticks or rocks. And so this is just basically its beginner home.
and
When it starts to grow, you're gonna wanna transplant it once you can start to see the roots poking out of the bottom.
I mean, on the table, you also find some, things, some labels for your plants. And they provided also these, so you can take them home that you're not leaking all over the place.
Yeah, we have the hot water, and then we're just gonna.
And these are fully, these are biodegradable, so if you put them in your pot, you can just fill it with more dirt and around the around the thing, so eventually. Put in the soil.
We're just gonna put the peat pots in these bowls. And because really this, if it gets too soggy, it'll stay soggy and it'll start to fall apart.
Right.
These are just,
Right,
I
yeah,
believe these are hard.
right, yeah, that's why we're gonna put them in here after, when they take them home.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, so we're gonna get some warm water, hot water, and put it on these peat pellets and let it expand.
Okay, you know what I would do is I'll put the tape.
If you don't wanna use your hands, I have spoons, if you
I'll
wanna break
take-
it,
I'll bring it out.
Maybe we should do it on the table for that.
Yeah. I'll bring it out.
Yeah, cause they're already.
Let me just take it.
They're already there. Let me know if you want,
Is there two people?
Have you done?
No, no, nothing.
Okay.
Don't forget that that's my food.
Not
yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
What is more is.
These are all about
My experience of the bagel is. Cilantro is, you have to break it down, and you don't want to go deep before you can really get a good harvest out of it, so I would say basil. And the cool thing with basil is that if you keep putting it back.
I think you'll need this, or you know, I can take a.
Area for more growth.
I
Let
had
me know
a
if you need warm water
basil
or-
from Walmart.
Or even hotter water.
Oh, yeah?
And add
Yeah,
it.
it's salt, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sometimes when you get transplants from the store, they're really not used to like being outside because they don't live in the house. So then once they go outside, they shrivel up and die. Exactly. So really what I like to do is kind of like smooth it out, like roll anybody wants to patio, and then a little bit so they can kind of relate. And then maybe after about a week, start moving it closer, then you can.
Eliza, need water over
For
here.
how much time
No, we have it.
do
We
you
have it
let
here.
the plant
Oh.
get outside?
Well, once you plant it in here, I would say that it's gonna grow in this for about a month or a month and a half.
Oh. It's like a, can be an outdoor plant.
Yeah, actually, this is the type of mason that I have, and my whole yard has slowly.
So Eliza, I'm gonna do this.
Grass, the majority of my yard is basil now. So, I mean, if you like basil, it's perfect, right?
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
Are we doing seconds on anybody?
Yes, it's just one seed and then.
Yes, my coworker asked me if I could do one for him since he couldn't make it.
Okay.
Thank you.
With two.
So
Anybody else wants to do one?
And the piece is in there. So this is.
Is there anybody else that wants to do more than one?
No, but I don't know.
yo-
Already got it.
I want to see what this is.
For if you're positive.
You found it, like, kind of like. Which is, that's my problem, right?
This is me at
Okay,
my
who wants,
grandma's.
for who's that guy right there?
You just like break it up, you wanna make sure it's not
Oh,
wet like that. Eliza, you should make sure, yeah, that they mix it up because it's.
Anybody else want more than one? You want more than one?
Okay, there's one
Huh?
back there.
Okay. You like another one?
Miguel, you're gonna be on camera. Para que miren, para que te miren, que estás trabajando.
Okay, yeah, so, you know, so let's see, I think we use that to texture it around.
Your question?
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, and like all of it goes over water and then it'll grow.
Same, right?
You need more water.
Yeah.
That one's so cute. There's just like, I don't.
If you need more water.
Yeah, we have spoons. There you go.
Thank you. Need some more water. And so
How
have
is
it
it on
all
the
squished up and hydrated, then you're gonna wanna put it in.
Okay, so it just, it's
Yeah,
actually.
it might need a little bit more.
What about this?
I'm gonna have.
So for now, we go kind of let's so kind of hide it and then
You know how to take it out? No, I don't.
Oh,
Yeah, you have to take it out.
like a little cap.
Yes.
Okay, there.
And you guys are able to take the seeds home. So if you wanna take the little
Perfect, that looks great.
containers that you guys have, you guys can take them home, so you have more. Thank you.
That looks good, and then it'll.
And then these are also like a
absorb
gift
more
for
into
you guys,
itself
so you guys can, once you put, are trying to put the soil, I encourage you guys to put this inside and just put it there.
Yeah, that
and
way it
then
doesn't leak all over your car or wherever you're
and you're
transporting, moving it around to.
as well, as we have aloe vera, ahí ya como crecido, so you guys can also take that.
Thank you. This was the second one and I need more water. It is a,
Take that.
Yeah, just a
Yeah,
little
that's
time.
for your.
so
So I think she's.
Water, okay. Need more water?
Correct. Do they just help?
Yeah, they can help.
Okay,
Themselves to take,
what's her name?
yeah,
Is her, she's one of the employees, right?
Yes, Norma.
Okay,
Yeah, that's perfect.
Norma is from your
There's a lower here.
she brought from her, Norma brought from
Oh,
her
yeah, that
farm
looks good.
for you guys to freely take. And, it's up here, so just go ahead and take it as you're leaving or whatever, cause. It's already got dirt on it.
So if you're ready, if your little pot is hydrated, you can go ahead and put it in your pot, but make sure it's safe to- But don't have it in.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna break it apart, it's, creo que le echaron un chorro de limón, este nomás es, también ya lo habían hecho, ¿verdad? It feels nice and fluffy.
Load it into the pot.
Y este más que tiene más agua. Ya mientras que lo vayas por piso, ya que se
There's an open
lo
pod somewhere.
disuelto.
And I had the.
Ya dentro, porque va a empezar a tirar como la agüita que
Oh, by the water.
Yes, así que don't worry if it lo echan aquí.
So now.
Pero pues más agua y de hecho un poquito más de agua saliendo. Yo creo que este sí lo vas a ocupar y vas a hacer otro pot.
No, I just didn't, couldn't grab it. I'm gonna put this over here. Those.
Yeah.
No, grab something.
Maybe se
Oh, ya tiene el disquito.
That way we know.
Ya se ha hecho.
Ya las puedes echar, no sé si quieres hacer el mismo intensor.
Can we put the seeds already?
If you're ready to plant, make sure that you do not plant them very deep though. They need to be like, 8 inches. And throw all the seeds in there.
All of them?
Well, like each type that you want, put one in there, or like on the whole. I was about to say, like, why do you think you would need so many? Because there's
They'll start a few different, well, a few seeds of the same variety in one pot.
So I gathered all the vegetables.
They're able to untangle the roots so that they can transplant it.
So if we need any more We'll just do it over here. Great, good.
And with the seeds, the smaller the seed, the less you're gonna wanna plant it, so about a quarter of an inch depth is what these seeds would be planted at. You don't wanna put the seed too far down in the water.
Yeah, and the season is ready for all the seeds that I got, or?
Yeah, because we're in zone 10A, we generally don't freeze, so these plants will do well.
I mean, there's multiple seeds in the package. I think you're asking if you give the whole thing and just into a.
No, you just wanna put one or two seeds, like kinda like a safety net in case the first one doesn't work out.
Right, yeah,
That's what
that,
we generally do.
yeah, a lot of times we do an extra seed for germination and
Oh.
keep the strongest plant.
If I was gonna buy, put all of those, what I want.
This one?
So you're going to want to put one or two seeds in the pot.
For.
Lo decían más como
Like,
que
put them in your hands.
cilantro, así como
Ah,
que ya le pusieron así diferente para saber.
No, but it's not-
So,
Sí,
por hacer ahí.
Like-
Pero sí,
Others like to be lightly
no
covered
estás
with
bien,
oil.
no te preocupes. Y si quieres hacerlo, también puedes
so
decir
cilantro,
para
put it like
las
lightly covered.
tenemos mucho más.
And you'll find out with other plants too, like peppers and tomatoes, just very lightly covered. with oil.
Lo bueno que es parte
Pues sí, bueno, sé, dependiendo
Yeah, they be like technically-
A mí me dijo que cilantro no.
But that was a
Especially since there's more seeds in there, you know, you're gonna, it's like you can, once they grow, like from the pot, so that you'll have a few different plants instead of just one plant.
What plants were you
This
recommending?
cardboard, if it stays
For
dark,
the, like,
that means that it's too.
Oh,
Basically,
basically.
So really what you
now,
do is fill it.
because it's a good time to
So
plant
if it's like this,
it.
perfect amount of wet. Soggy, the pot, or actually one in particular will start falling apart. And so, you want to transplant them or move them to a different location.
I know,
About a month. and a half.
definitely slump. Which seeds are?
Basil.
I think the seasons, what, basil, what, I know, definitely now,
Which one you
basil
guys?
is summer, parsley likes the cool shade.
Oh, okay,
So,
I've had some basil plants live 3 or 4 years.
well, no, but starting them, start basil now, start falling now, well,
Sí.
parsley, yeah, I think so,
The fall as sort of like a mini spring.
yeah, not time and, shade.
Oh, ¿en serio?
Okay, so we need both,
Yeah.
but definitely cilantro.
Yeah, definitely cilantro.
Yeah, as long as, yeah,
Oh, cool.
it's slightly moist, and it's not overly moist, so
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah, when you get home, just add a little
About
water.
your plants in your
Yeah,
office.
just make sure that it's,
Are in my office. I have one in my office.
yeah,
But
just.
it's all so
covered.
So I don't know if that. would-
Cilantro can go
Yeah, but
about,
the mannequin.
That one will probably.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
really the cold weather doesn't really inhibit plants unless we're below 60.
Oh.
So it should be fine. I start seeds in my house all the time and I keep it pretty clean.
Oh, so cool. I was wondering about that.
It's not like the more. It's not like.
Okay, so they.
They have like a heating pad for plants. So, and the ceiling heat mat, are usually called, and you can just go ahead and set that under your pot, plug it in and. Yeah, a lot of the older areas, they like to start the tree garden indoors, so they'll have like a big rag with the mats, and then they'll start their seedlings on those with the lights and everything. I mean, gardening can either be really inexpensive or it can be so expensive. Really depends on how you're doing it. Yeah, when I started, I had some leftover 5-gallon buckets that my sister left around and I just started with those. Or I'll find random things to use as a garden prop.
For the, I feel like it's better.
It just depends really, I think. Yeah. It just really depends on what you wanna grow, like certain plants love to be in full sun, like peppers and tomatoes and eggplants, or other things that like a little more shade, radishes or cilantro. It really depends on what you wanna grow, and I always recommend growing what you're actually gonna eat at home. Yeah, because, you know, you don't wanna end up with a bunch of kale.
Or actually, he's got it.
That's
It's like, parece poquitos, para darle espacio no todas juntas. Que se me fue. One time, yeah, so did they, so for the mayor. I don't like that.
Okay, yeah, it's an eighth of an inch.
Well, I was thinking more in the shape. That is part, but it's and they're a little sweet.
That I think we're.
I mean, that means that. Typically, I like our cilantro.
I think we could have, si te quieres llevar, tenemos.
Yo puedo todavía otro abierto o es, or they open the soil. I think like the shade area where you could get like. So it's fun.
If you guys wanna grab food, you can still grab food, we have water, juices.
Feet pops and everything if you wanna.
Yeah.
Hey, llévate las mías.
I like research a lot, so I just think that's one of the areas that I like learning things about. I tried.
I think we're gonna bring up all the.
Yeah, that.
I've always been interested in art. You know. Yeah, that's something I'm interested in, but yeah, I found the big. It's always like.
Yeah.
So.
You guys have a question in the chat from Isabel Ventura. I don't know if you guys wanna go ahead and answer that. You guys have a question in the chat from a
I would say
student?
that's
Oh,
probably a
Candace, there's a chat question.
You guys have a question from Isabel Beltran, right here.
These are just little things for them to keep,
Yeah, they can keep anything over there, except Bible.
anything but the clothes. Okay.
You can either answer it over here or just like over here, but out loud.
Okay.
You're on unmuted, so you're good to answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a question from Isabel Beltran in the chat. Her question is, I purchased a small mint plant and I kept it indoors, but it was dying because it got infested by a small fly. I planted it in a bigger planter and took it outside, but it is in bad condition. Do you think I might be overwatering it? What can I do to save it? And will eggshells work on ants, or do I need to purchase pest control spray? So a small mint plant, okay, mint. It's mint, yeah, I would say it's a special plant. Either it's gonna live or it's gonna die. So in my experience with mint, it is something that you will put in a pot.
Yes, definitely.
It does tend to be more invasive. And so it can potentially take over an area. So in regard to Isabel's question, it could be possible that it's not getting enough sunlight. You could be overwatering it. It really depends on what type of soil or soilless medium the plant came with in the first place. Did you happen to transplant it? Yes, you planted it in a bigger planter. Took it outside. Generally in the
What about
summer,
transplant shop? How long ago was that?
could be, but it could be because in the summer, mint plants look pretty bad.
Yeah,
But they will start coming around more when the
they like
weather
the
cools
spring
off.
got then. Right, yeah, cause mine's starting to pick up again, you know, cause mine kind of died out. But I do wanna note something that you mentioned. Does everybody know what invasive means on plants?
That they take over the section or
The whole, yeah, the ground or whatever, yeah, so if you know a plant is invasive, that's a good one to do it in a pot. That way you can contain it better. In other words, you might have mint in your corn or whatever.
Yeah, so
Or-
invasive plants basically outcompete other plants for their nutrients and space. And so you'll wanna really keep that in mind. So with ants, they really come to your garden when they want water. So if you're overwatering, that could be another sign you have a lot of ants. And so letting the area dry out will convince the ants to move away. And another thing you could use is what we mentioned before, diatomaceous earth. I actually saw some at Lowe's the other day. So that's somewhere that you can pick that up. Diatomaceous earth, I can write it in the chat. And so you'll know what to look
Yeah,
for.
I had to buy a bag the other day, I only had 2 bags on the shelf, so I hope they get more in.
And you can also order it on Amazon as well.
That's the comment sent to the chat, the second one, it's from Dr. Villegas, so thank you, Dr. Villegas, he's the dean of students here at school. And also our boss, and he's just saying that thank you for our guest presenters, for you guys, and Carla, she's a student lead for this project. And for this event.
Yeah, thank you for letting us be here. We hope that our presentation helps familiarize you with the basics of gardening.
Yeah, it's like, there's a lot of, like on invasive plants, invasive can be, there's different types of invasive, some are invasive with the roots. Like grass can be very invasive through the roots. But some are, and so mint is one that, mint is one of those plants that actually wherever it touches the ground will develop new roots. So that's why one of the ways it comes invasive. But then there's, there's different types of ways that things become invasive. So
Are we ready to get back to the presentation?
I
We
think
want
so.
A little bit longer to like.
well, they can
wrap
work
up.
while we get back, I think.
Yeah, you guys are comfortable with that? Alright, so before we take the break, we went over differences in watering requirements for each type of herb and how most herb gardens don't require fertilization. But your vegetable garden will mix benefit.
Okay, so when it comes to fertilization, generally when you go to the store, you're gonna see 3 numbers associated with different letters on the package. So it's gonna be NPK.
Right.
Oh, okay, and
And I
then
just agree with you.
Cardi, do you wanna tell them what NP and K stands for?
Nitrogen, potassium, and what's phosphorus, okay. Yeah, those are key ingredients that all plants need.
Yeah, so those 3 numbers, the numbers will generally be, the N will be the highest and then the other 2 will be lower. So the nitrogen, that's what helps your plant to grow big and healthy, right? And whereas the other 2 help more in the flower development and fruit development.
Right, and there's some plants that you plant that actually are what we call nitrogen fixers, like peas and beans and stuff. We plant those sometimes along things that like corn and stuff like that, which are really need a lot of nitrogen, you know? So some plants you plant with things just because they help them. That's where the companion plant goes back in again. And a common companion planting, very well known companion planting system is called the 3 Sisters, which is a combination, usually deals with corn. You can have squash, you can have pumpkin, you can have beans, you can have potatoes even, you know. But they're common plants that are planted together, and they're they usually help each other grow better.
Yeah,
That's why you make the Three Sister Soup.
oh, that's interesting. I have not heard of Three Sister Soup.
Yeah, it's indigenous, I believe.
Yeah, the Three Sisters is from the indigenous cultures.
Yeah, and it's based on the three plants that they plant.
Right, yeah, it's been, that they were the one that are given credit for coming up with it.
That's crazy.
Yes, and like Cardi was mentioning, there are certain plants, they're typically known as cover crops that you can plant that help to add nutrients to your
Soil.
field, your soil. There's things like barley, clover.
Well,
Peas, yeah, peas.
Peas, yeah, I love baby peas.
Oats.
Oh, you know, the strawberries help, I know they can be a cover crop.
Yeah, but typically with a cover crop, what you'll want to do is till it into the ground before it sets seed. So that's what the nitrogen would be.
How do you know how often you should water plants?
Okay, well,
That's it.
with the university, we were actually introduced to this system called CMIS, which is a system out at the extension center and a couple other places all throughout state, right? And that lets you know the evapotranspiration rates, which is a really big word for how fast the water evaporates. So based on that, there's a simple calculation you can do to know exactly how much water, but generally you can just stick your finger in the soil and see if it's still wet. So,
Right, and you can buy things if you're really unsure. There's actually moisture testers that you can buy, that you can stick in your soil, and there's different lengths, so you have a deep rooted one, you probably want a deeper one, but if you do shallow root stuff, you have a deep one. But they can actually test your soil moisture, and and some seeds, they like a lot of moisture, like celery, they like a lot of moisture. But some seeds, they don't like, like rosemary, it likes well-drained soil, so it doesn't want to have a very soaked bed of soil.
yes, I agree. A moisture meter is a good thing to have for your garden. So it's basically a device with some prongs, and it has a dial. And based on how wet your soil is, it'll give you a number, and you can look at the chart that it comes with, and you'll know if the soil is as wet or as dry as you need it for
That
the particular
particular
plant on the
plant,
chart.
right, yeah, because every plant's gonna be different.
That's a really good question. Yeah. What's the name of the thing?
You can type of moisture meter or soil moisture meter on like Amazon, for instance.
Yeah, there's different types, there's some with a single, or some with the dual, prongs. And some have other things on them too, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But, so there's different types. That's really handy, especially if you're a beginner, because that really helps you learn. But when you get more advanced, you kind of, oh, I know, you don't really, you stop using it as much. But yeah, I had one that came with a kit, and I was reusing a lot at first, but actually now I don't even know where it's at. Because I haven't used it in ages, I just kind of like, no.
So site selection, when you start up your garden, you're gonna wanna make sure that your garden area is close to a water source, first of all. Close to home would be good, you don't wanna, have it so far out that it's such a pain to, bring back all your goodies you harvested. So, you really wanna keep, like we mentioned, the plants based on their water needs together. So like Cardi had said, for instance, rosemary or things like lavender, things that thrive more in a Mediterranean climate, you're not gonna want it, somewhere that you have something that you really need to keep watered. Yes, make that Cardi.
Not really. But you want me to talk, huh? Yeah, it's I guess it's drawing like,
There's a couple of herbs that I've grown from this list specifically are lavender, mint, cilantro, lemon balm. I've also grown borage. I really like borage. Borage is a really cool plant.
Oh,
It
yeah,
helps
that-
attract a lot of beneficial insects to
that's
your
a popular
garden.
one.
You can also pick the little flowers and put them in a drain, and they taste a little bit like cucumber. It's a really nice, cool, refreshing thing. I mean, I like to make fancy drinks with things from my garden, like the lemon basil or the borage, you know, or even making tea from the lemon balm that I also used to help me when I was sick. So it really just depends what you like to use, what you intend to do with your herb garden or your plants, you know. A lot of people like to grow,
I have
for
oregano.
instance, yeah, oregano. Oregano is a really good one, and a lot of people use that in Mexican cuisine, right? And
Like
Italian as
Italian.
well.
Both. Yeah,
I
yeah,
heard
there's different
them-
types.
I heard her mention like lavender's like a Mediterranean temperature that or climate type of plant. That information she has because she experienced it and she like knows what that means, but if you're not sure what that, you know, what that means, like in terms of taking care of the plant, we have a UCA on our website that you can go to and specifically look up what plant you're curious about, and it'll give you just about all the information you can think of to take care of it, including like pollinators or predators and whatnot.
But yeah, I do a lot of research on my plants when I plant things, and I and I always, you know, I don't always remember things, so it's okay if you don't remember, because that's why you have this stuff written down, and you have these sites and stuff that you can just go back to and reference and stuff. You know, it's like, you know, some things I know off the top of my head, but some things I'm like, does this go with this or not? I don't wanna give myself a doomsday thing where I'm killing my plants by trying to grow my plants. You know?
Yeah, it definitely happens. And even, you know, after 10 years of gardening for me, I still make mistakes all the time. I'm not perfect, you know? I learned every single time, like, now I know that I need some shade for my eggplants because they all got sunburned. Yes.
What do you use the lemon balm for?
Lemon balm. Okay, so lemon balm, I personally like to grow it for congestion, things like that. I also use it to attract pollinators. I believe somewhere in the slide, I do have a photo of my lemon balm flowers. They're these big spikes of purple that, oh, even the carpenter bees just, they love it. Carpenter bees are those big black bees, and you just hear them. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? Okay, so, now finding information on how to use herbs medicinally can be a little tricky. So you're really gonna want to cross-reference from multiple different sources to see what's the safest way to use them. A lot of times, some herbs can interact with medication, so you're gonna wanna make sure that you're not doing anything that could harm you.
That's true, you know, because sometimes medications are derived from other things and they contradict that, and you know, if you have a particular health problem, you know, it may not make your health problem better, it might make it worse.
And the arugula, is it kind of like a peppery salad?
Yeah, I would say it's
Yeah.
definitely peppery. It's a good one to plant in this cooler season. It's a really good one to interplant with different herbs. So the plant itself really doesn't grow so large. And you can just keep cutting the newer or the older leaves off, right? From the outside of the plant to keep continually harvesting. Cut and come again.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good technique to use when you're growing
Oh,
lettuce.
yeah, that's the thing too, like your cilantro, that's when you wanna, when it gets yay big, you wanna cut it, use it. And use it, dry it, whatever you're gonna do, but keep it cut after it reaches so high, because if you don't, it might start to bolt, which means to begin to make, is what that's trying to do on that basil, which is going into the seeding process.
Yeah, so I would definitely take a note of cut and come again and see the different techniques, like on YouTube, for instance, where you can harvest just the outer leaves of your lettuce or your Swiss chard or
Your
kale.
celery,
Yeah, so that you're not just cutting it down and then that's the end of that plant.
right, yeah, cause when you go to the store, when you buy a thing of celery, it's been chopped off at the root, but you actually, if you're running your garden, you just pull off what you need as you go, and you don't need to pull that whole plant. There's no need to, because you're not trying to sell from the store, for a store, you know, you can sell on the market. They do that to sell in the store, but we don't need to do that at home. And leaf lettuce is really good for grow for your home, if you like salads and stuff, little salad. Because that's one of those cut and cut again kind of things, but you just pull off the leaf and just let it continue growing.
So like I had mentioned previously, location is really important. You're gonna wanna have your garden close to home with good soil. You know, that has equal balance of sand, compost, woody material. You can work things in like compost and other amendments. Really, it's good to have your soil tested so you could see how exactly you need to amend it. Because if you're adding so much fertilizer, it's really in the long run gonna harm your plants more than help them. Another thing, you're gonna want to have level ground, with water supply.
Level ground, I don't know about that.
I mean, there are certain instances where, you know, terracing.
She knows what I'm talking about.
Marty lives with a sloped hill in her home, which can be hard, especially with watering, the water just wants to run downhill. So
I level
yeah.
as best I can,
So
actually.
terracing your garden, you know, by making levels in it, if you live on a slope, would really help. Or, in this one type of gardening method called permaculture, we use swales and different things like that to keep the water, you know, flowing in the correct direction and things like that. And it helps to conserve water and things like that as
Right,
well.
yeah.
And a little joke I did last time was you're gonna wanna have level ground and a close water supply because you don't wanna end up like Jack and Jill.
I've done that.
Yeah. It's not great to fall down, right? So adequate light is important, like I had mentioned. Too little light, your plant won't grow. Too much light and it can get sun.
Yeah, that's, I added those, pallets.
And then when you, we talked about earlier, like raised beds, this is an example of a raised bed here. Using pallets of wood that have been, kind of stuck together by cement blocks. And that's it. Like it doesn't have to be this fancy thing. You don't have to take up all this space. This is right in front of the UC Farm Smart, in Hopeville. And that's something we helped build as the Master Gardener program. We got to take part in that. So I just wanted to really point out because we spent some time talking about raised beds. So that's a really cool example of how it can be sweet and simple as pallets of wood and cement blocks, and that's it, you're done. We leveled the ground as best as we could. We put fabric under and
Right,
then
and we also,
soil.
as precaution, we also put the wire.
So there's what, like, you can create your garden, even if there's nothing around it. If you create a perimeter, you create the intention of like having something grow there, you can definitely.
Oh, let me point out something in this thing. These are, in this picture, you'll see bricks, these are stacked up. There's three bricks here, and there's a metal post that runs down it. That is hammered into the ground to keep these from like sliding off. And these bricks are actually got a notch in them in 4 directions, and so that you can put these like 2x6s in them. So they're easy to build.
Yes,
And
I
they're,
like these a lot.
and the materials, these are generally, I don't know all hardware stores, but I got those at Lowe's.
Yeah, I actually just purchased some of them after I saw the UC use these, they're called old castle style bricks. I really liked them. It was really fast to put together the garden beds. Each one of those old castle style bricks costs a little less than $3.80 a piece. And so depending on how high you want it, you know, that's how many you buy. So if you want a short raised bed, you could just buy 4 and then a few pieces of wood, stick it all together and you have yourself a garden bed. Or you can make it higher, and like she had mentioned that we used rebar in the end of the bricks in order to create a taller raised bed.
Right, and some reasons to do taller raised beds are longer roots, or in my case, I do taller raised beds because I have heights.
Thank you.
Yeah, those bunnies they'll get into the beds if they can climb into them.
Or dig in,
Yeah,
which is another reason why.
but they
you
have to be
wanna-
able to get up high enough to do it. So, yeah, so so you gotta don't know what you're up against and figure out your strategies and do what you want. Do the beds the way you want them. Another thing you could do, another suggestion you might want to consider doing is before planting it all, especially if you're not, unless you're like kind of gonna dribble in here and there, but some people they start gardening and they don't have a plan. Having a plan helps. Throw out your yard. You can do it if you have scratch paper, you can do it on a computer program or whatever. But draw out your yard, say I want to plant this here, this here, this here, and know where you're gonna put things. It helps you. And you don't have to stick to it, but it helps in the long run if you have some kind of idea what you want to do. You know,
All right, so now that was, most of what we've talked about so far have been about herb gardens. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about what a vegetable garden looks like. And that's a pretty different feel to it, and especially considering like fertilizer, that's not something you use in an herb garden. The water is different, the roots are very different.
vegetables is what I do mostly.
Yeah, so these, we're gonna just go over the cool season ones since it's the season that we're in at the moment. And we usually wanna do those when it's like 55 to 75, which I know is like not super typical here, but there's ways to amend, like adding shade and whatnot to that. And then we have some examples of root, stem, and leaf veggies, and I was just wondering in a show of hands if anyone has any experience with growing carrots, asparagus, or any of the listed stuff up there.
Interesting though.
Yeah. Definitely, because these are things that you go to the store for like all the time, right?
Right,
So it's definitely something good to know about.
right. So, yeah, things like asparagus, if you've never grown it before, you want to plant that in the ground, preferably either in a raised bed like that or directly in the ground, because it has a very, very, very deep root. And it takes, the thing about asparagus, it takes from seed 3 years before you start getting asparagus. So it's not the first thing you probably want to plant, but you can plant it while you're learning how to plant other things. And then when what do you call it? It'll fern up the first 2 years, and then when that fern dries off, you cut it down, and then so that it will make asparagus the third year. So, but another deep rooted vegetable is like celery. That's got some, you get those heads of celery, I think the celery sort of called heads, I think. Anyway, and they're about this size usually in the store. Guess what? That root's just equal to that below the ground. So if you ever pull one out, you find out the root is just is just about as long as the celery itself. So,
Yeah, and a lot of these can be interplanted, like for example, in my garden, I have asparagus beds interplanted with tomatoes because.
right, oh, tomatoes are good with
Uh-huh.
asparagus.
If you see online, there's plenty of information about tomatoes help asparagus to grow better. Like Cardi was mentioning, companion plants, certain plants give off certain chemicals that will help other plants either live and grow better or die off completely. Like one example that you'll see a lot in certain garden books is black walnut tree. If you have a black walnut tree planted in your yard, because of one of the chemical components in the tree, it will cause nothing else in your yard to grow. So those are all things to be aware of.
And
These
there's
are all
non-companion plants too. Like,
Yeah.
don't put potatoes and corn together because potatoes and corn can go together. Potatoes and tomatoes. Tomatoes, because the reason you don't put those together, common pests attack both, and your chances of getting a pest problem is greater.
Yeah, so you'll see that the list is split in two, warm season and cool season. So like we had mentioned earlier, the cool season crops like turnips, Swiss chard, radish, beets, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, carrots. So those are all things that you're really gonna want to get planted in order to continue to start harvesting them in late fall, early winter, and even sometimes into spring. So some of these plants you will wanna start from seed in a tray as a transplant, whereas others are best planted directly where they're gonna grow. Like carrots or radish, those are an example of plants that you're gonna wanna directly sow into the soil where you plan on harvesting them from. Versus transplanting things like lettuce. So lettuce, it's still pretty hot to start lettuce. So I would say if you start the seeds indoor now, about a month from now, you can start transplanting them outside. And lettuce is something that you can actually plant quite a bit of it bunched up together and just, like we mentioned, cut and come again with it. So it really doesn't take up much space. There's so many different varieties of each individual plant we have listed here, you know, like Swiss chard. There's umpteen varieties of those, radishes, beets, broccoli, whether it be just a regular green broccoli to a Romanesco broccoli that I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's very intricately spiraled, very interesting looking type of broccoli. Or you have purple cauliflower or orange cauliflower.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And
And it's fun to do
some
that.
vegetables that are classed together, like the cauliflower, the broccoli, horseradish, I grow, they're all part of the brassica family, so you a lot of times we call them brassicas, just because they're part of the same family, they grow alike more or less.
Yeah, including Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, Brussels sprouts.
Does it matter, what combination of herbs you put together?
You can find like a list online that will say, don't grow this herb with that herb and things like that, but off the top of my head, I really can't think of any examples, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm constantly checking online there, and there's some sources I look more closely at and like trust more. But I'm always like, I'll type in words like companion plants for this, companion plants for that, you know, and sometimes you'll find some things that are companion plant for one vegetable, but not another one, but that same vegetable could be companion. That there's one that's like, what is it? Trying to think, something I'm thinking of that does that, where you can
Like rice and beans? I mean, not rice and beans, corn and beans.
Yeah,
corn and beans are
that sounds like
companions.
it.
Right, corn and beans are companions, but like, I think it's what they were potatoes, I think you, oh yeah, I think potatoes you can grow, onions, you can't grow, I don't think you can grow onions with potatoes, but you can grow onions with,
So this is a really good
Sorry,
example
anyway,
in this photo here of how companion planting works best. This, excuse me, Cardi.
sorry,
This right here is a good example of curly kale, right? So this is like a darker, maybe like a, well, anyway, this is a row of kale, and this seems to be arugula, and then you'll see they have cabbages mixed in here as well. So it's okay to have these, you know, it's not a farm, it doesn't have to be perfect, you know? So having these all mixed in together also helps to sort of confuse the pests. And yeah, and then it's basically a salad garden. You just come and harvest a little bit of here and there and throw it together and have yourself salad.
oh, just another thing to mention too, is sometimes when you go to the store, your vegetables all nice and trimmed up. But sometimes they throw away a lot of healthy parts of the vegetable, like that you can make other things with, like your carrot tops you can make soups with, but you don't see the carrot tops in the store usually, you know? But then there's also vegetables you do not want to consume the leaves to, like tomatoes and potatoes. They're poisonous. The leaves to those are actually poisonous. Right, but so know your leaves. And you know, so but sometimes you don't always get the leaves in the store, so but you're when you grow your own garden, you open up a lot more avenues for more culinary adventures, yes. But just know your vegetables, look it up, say, can I eat this? Is this edible?
So making efficient use of your space, oftentimes you'll hear about gardeners getting into square foot gardening, whereby it's, I would say it's like intuitive gardening.
Right, yeah, that makes it, is that easiest system to learn?
So I believe the person that had coined the term was named Mel Bartholomew, and he wrote a book called Square Foot Gardening. And it's where in 1 square foot, you can plant a certain number of crops, right, to maximize your space. For instance, like 12 radishes or 1 broccoli or 2 pepper plants. It all really depends on the space you have. So it's about maximizing your space. And a lot of times you'll see like a grid laying on top of the garden box where they can see like, oh, this is 1 square foot, that's 1 square foot.
Right, yeah, the grid is also used often like sprinkler system, not sprinkler system, but watering system.
Yeah, like a drip.
Drip, yeah.
Yeah. And so other ways that you can make efficient space is by having trellising systems. This is one that we all helped to set up at the Farm Smart Garden in Hopeville. These are
Cattle panels.
cattle panels. They were purchased at Tractor Supply, and they just bent them, staked them in, and that's what they'll
Wired them on.
that's what they'll use to grow things like melons or peas. Certain things need to have something
Trellis.
to hold on to.
Right.
Peas and cucumbers and melons, they all grow tendrils, which are like little arms that grab onto whatever it can to help it grow.
And then there's some things that don't have the tendrils, like tomatoes, that we also like, all people like also trellis, but those require staking and stuff like that.
Yeah, and with tomatoes, they really, since we're focusing on fall crops, I'll just mention it quickly. With tomatoes, there's different growth habits, right? There's indeterminate and there's determinate.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So determinate, typically the size is already determined. So if it says it's a 4-foot plant, it'll be a 4-foot plant, whereas indeterminate, it continues growing past it,
Till it can, as much as it wants.
and so sometimes you might end up with a 9-foot tomato plant. But recently, another master gardener and myself, we toured a seed company where we learned about dwarf tomato plants. And so I really recommend looking up dwarf tomato varieties for your garden. So those plants are gonna get about 3 or 4 foot high. And the plants themselves don't necessarily make small tomatoes. They make big, juicy heirloom style tomatoes. And the yield on these plants was incredible. And they were all organic, heirloom, etc. So definitely write that down, dwarf tomato plants, because they are amazing.
Right, and also the kind of tomatoes you choose to grow are also what might be the or what you would intend to use them for. Like if you want if you like eat a lot of sandwiches, you might want to grow like a beef steak or something. But if you're planning on getting into home canning and you want to do sauces and make sauces and stuff, you might want to grow a Roma tomato. Or you make salsa, you might want a Roma tomato. But if you just like, if you like salads and stuff, and might be like into a grape or a cherry tomato, you know, or maybe one of the things I found out was an interesting thing is birds, they like tomatoes, they love tomatoes. But you know what they didn't go after? Yellow tomatoes, because they like to red. So I could leave that in open. I didn't have to cover it because from the birds because they didn't. They're like, I don't see any tomatoes. They're not red. They're not ripe. Those are they're not ripe. They're yellow. You know.
Discrimination.
Yeah, so just to wrap things up for you guys, we're gonna go through these slides kind of quickly. I'm gonna skip some. But when you're preparing your garden, we've talked many times already about location, we talked about your soil being the right way, we talked about the spacing, we talked about vertical. Which ones can you plant together, which ones can you not plant together? So all of that takes preparing your plant. And you're gonna have to, you know, you can use your hands for sure, like we did today, we used even just a fork. Like you really just need something that can get you into the earth and get you grow at the end of the day. And then we kind of talked about this as well, where we have seeds versus transplants. Today you got seeds, and that was very clear to you, what is a seed, is like the little tiny bud, right? And you plant it and it's gonna get bigger, and you're going to create what is called a transplant, and that's what's in your like brown pot.
Oh, you know what, before we wrap this up, I'm gonna, those, forms. I'm gonna collect those.
Alright, so when it comes to planting seed and transplants, is everyone clear on this portion?
Do you have forms from you guys?
Yeah, so your seeds will become transplants because you're going to need to move. That's the basics. And then we talked a little bit about the early start, and this is once again going.
If you're not in the pictures.
Yeah, we've been through this throughout the presentation, lighting, safety, picture, what does your soil look like, how do you check?
And you guys have.
Yeah, and here we just quickly have to show you
Oh, you didn't come in late?
Yes.
this is one of our master gardeners took the soil from their homes and we tested it. So there's a simple jar test that you can perform, which is up to us through the program, to see what percentage of sand and so those are just three components of soil that are important to take into consideration when you're thinking about how come my water is moving the way that it does? How come my plant is growing this way? Maybe you wanna check it and make amendments then. So yeah. And that's the end of that. Are there any questions here?
Hi everyone, so I'm Carla, I'm the one who's leading this project,
You? Yes.
with Perla, and Brisa was the one who helped us,
Oh,
and I just wanted to say thank you for being here. This was our first event, I hope you guys liked it. I was so like emotional in the morning, cause I was like, yeah, my first event, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, we're having more events coming up. Just please stay tuned in our social media, email please. So yes, I think that's it for me. So yeah, just thank you for being here and being able to make your time, and yeah, hope you liked it. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
It's a herb. Contains chemicals that might help bacterial fungal infections.